Hi, Rachel. Welcome to the Make Life Rich Movement podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's not every day that I get to speak to a beauty boss that has single-handedly taken over the esthetician's way of doing things in just the last 5 years. So I feel honored myself. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's so nice.
So you started in a deep, rich history of coming from a lineage of women that like to help other women feel beautiful about themselves, feel the finer things in life, be able to kind of give everyone a moment of pause to get a little bit of me time in. What does it feel like to come from this lineage of strong, thoughtful, powerful women that ultimately want to help other women feel their best?
It's it's like the biggest honor that I could have, right? Like I am so lucky to have that foundation. I believe in like generational vibes and traumas, but we'll go with
Hmm.
like good, juju in this respect. Like in me, I have my grandmother who in the 70s was such a pioneer in skincare and building this industry that I'm in now. And then there was my mom who took over the company, grew it to a whole new place. And that's all inside of me, right? Like that's at the cellular level. So I feel really like strong every day because of that. But it's also like it's the warm and fuzzy part of what I do. I get to like continue that legacy on every day, which gets me out of bed so much quicker and gets me really passionate about what we're doing here. So overall, like I feel really, really fortunate for it. But I also feel like I'm set up for success greater because I can pull from those experiences and those stories that I heard while growing up and watching them, grow. Like I feel like I got like a front seat to watching someone do this before I did. So overall, it's really really cool to get to do this as a third generation.
It like really strikes me that I think our age group, I'm 38, I'll be 39. Our age group, our mothers didn't necessarily always have these opportunities in front of them to be able to show the entrepreneurial side of what is possible for a woman. So, was that something that you were kind of aware of when you were growing up? Like, oh shit, like not only my mom, but my grandmom are bosses, and this is cool.
You know, there was an understanding of like, wow, my family does something really cool that I'm really into, right? I always joke that like I'm so glad that my grandmother started a skincare business and not like an electrical business because like I'm not smart enough for that. Um, but I had an awareness that my family was doing something that they really cared about, that they were really passionate about, and that like fueled them every day to go to work. And I was aware that like mom and grandma got up every morning and like went to an office or a salon and like worked a full day's work and felt really good coming home and had a lot to talk about. But
Wow.
it takes until you're like in high school, I feel like, or college even, when you start to really realize how fortunate you are, or maybe like areas where like life is hard. But like then I was like, oh, they're talking about this thing called entrepreneurship. I've got like two badass women doing that at home every day, or at my
Hmm.
grandmother's house. And so I feel like it wasn't until I was like, call it 18, I was like, oh wow, how fortunate am I not only to have seen like what hard work looks like, but also to see how someone's had an idea, started it, made it into something. And I like don't take that for granted now, but I feel like youth is wasted on the young, right? Like I didn't sit there at like 7 years old being like, wow, mommy, started her own thing. Like, and I wish I did because I would have loved more years of being grateful for it. But it was
Yeah.
definitely really, really fun to witness.
It's interesting that you say that it was passed down wow, tongue tied here, generationally to you. It's the last year for me has been really big in just learning more about mother wounds and like generational trauma and the ways in which things for many of us are passed down. And it's really beautiful. This topic has sent me kind of down like a little bit of a rabbit hole to where when a mother is healed and whole and has a healed mother that is whole, they kind of create a lineage of really strong women if they have daughters that go on to just create, share, 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 heal, heal, heal. And it doesn't escape me that I'm assuming seems to be kind of the way in which you were brought into this world with the knowing that you had not one but two women that had gone against such a really difficult grain, especially in the 70s when your grandmother started all of this. But do you feel like it is your duty to kind of continue to spread and make opportunities within business, let alone your industry for women, kind of with what you were given from your mother and grandmother?
You know, entrepreneurship and like hard work is so ingrained in me. It's just like who I am. It's like at the DNA level, I feel like, because like it doesn't feel hard. It doesn't feel like I have to push myself or I feel like indebted to be doing this, so I'm gonna do it. Like it's just how I'm wired, like truly. So whether that's subconscious or truly just like who I am, like it just feels easy to do it. But like, sure, when I get to tell the story of my grandmother pioneered skincare in the United States in the 70s, my mom took it over, and now I'm reinventing it via Glowbar, like I feel like, oh, yes, I have a duty to like make this work. Like I feel a lot of pressure to make it work and have it be successful, but like I didn't start it because of that duty. I started it because I was like, I don't take care of my skin. I'm really sick of my parents asking me why I don't take care of my skin. Let's create something different that the modern day consumer is really primed for and ready for. So it's like a combination of everything. But honestly, like I wake up ready to work every day. I probably like you. It's like my brain is active and I'm ready every day.
It seems very serendipitous, and I love to see what comes out of that like moment of alignment for people. I would love to learn just a little bit about what your career path was like before you started Glowbar. Um, it sounds like because of your history with just beauty, you were kind of looking to find different avenues of how to work in the beauty industry. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I actually started out in like fashion. I use
Okay.
quotations just because like I wasn't working at like, Dior and like their haute couture department. I was in the buying program at TJX, the parent company for TJ Maxx and Marshalls. So all of you
Yes.
Maxinistas out there are my friends. But I graduated college, and I always say, like any nice Jewish girl, I was like, I want to get into fashion. And so I got a job at TJX, which was super cool because I graduated in '07. So I feel so fortunate actually to be have graduated in '07, like a year
Yes.
before '08.
Oh,
And
wait.
I know it's really like, it was a real challenge for people to kickstart their career. So I started there, and after 2.5 years, it wasn't right for me. I felt corporate was like, I was kind of like trying to break out of the box, and it wasn't really for me. And so I moved to New York City for a job at a company called Birchbox, which was a really tiny company at the time, but I really believed in it. I was like, this is how people are going to discover beauty in the future. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And so I did that, and I was like, oh, this startup thing. I didn't know about startups. I genuinely did not know about startups before my job at Birchbox. I had
Mhm.
never heard of them. My family didn't call themselves a startup, right? Because my grandmother had started it. It was a small business. And so finding this whole concept of like, oh, you can have an idea and like bring it somewhere and raise a little bit of money from, strangers, and have them believe in you and start your own thing and create jobs for other people and make them really happy was like this awesome concept to me. So I learned that, and then I actually chose to go on to a couple other brands that were more privately owned because I really wanted to understand, okay, what if I don't raise money from these things called venture capitalists? Like, what if I
Mhm.
just like start a business, have it make money, and pay for itself, and go from there. And so I went on to work at a couple beauty brands. So I always like beauty. It's like innovative, fun. It's
Mhm.
girly. I love the people that are in it, working so hard. And then I started Glowbar. But my journey was one of learning through others, I would
Mhm.
say, and I spent a decade doing that. And I would not be where I am today or as successful as I am today. And I'm not even saying I'm that successful, but I've learned so much from other people. And for me, if I had just started my own company right out of college, I would not be where I am today, and I certainly wouldn't be the leader I am today.
Mhm. Wow. Okay. So to know your timeline now, it is so impressive to me that every we like got released to the public from college at a really scary, weird time. Like the jobs that were relegated for like, I literally just said this on my last episode. The jobs that were meant for new college grads were being given to 30 and 40-year-olds with mortgages and children. And then anything above that, they're like, do you want to retire? You're 58. It's time to go. But it really did leave our generation to scramble in a way that I think was a little unexpected. It had never been like spoken about by our elders before. We were the last generation expected to follow that path and go to school and get a job. So I love that you somewhat did because it gave you this corporate foundation with a company that what I mean multiple millions of dollars was raised and you started in their infancy. So it just feels so beautiful of a transition for you to have the foot in the door when they're starting out and to see that back door. You've said it's an MBA in itself, which it most certainly is, but did that help you to chop the fear of starting Glowbar a bit because you had kind of been there, done that with somebody else's money?
Absolutely, you like nailed it. So it was my MBA, it was my testing ground, right? It was where I got to absorb and be a philanthropist. And it was so, I learned so much. And what I learned the most was what maybe not to do. Like I got to learn and make mistakes with other people and not, with my own idea. And also witness like where things could have gone differently or how a decision could have been made in a different way and benefited the organization better. And by the way, my team is learning the same here. I'm not saying, we don't make mistakes or could have done things differently. So like, this is not unique to my role at Birchbox. It was just being a part of a small company. You don't have it all figured out, even though follow me on social, you'll think I do. I do not. Let me like psych. So it was so cool to be able to test and learn with someone else, taking on that pressure. But now, I'm learning my own things doing it here. You never like know it all, right?
It's interesting that you kind of also have that full circle moment of being able to provide that breeding ground for other possible future entrepreneurs that are going to have their own idea and take it in their direction. But I wonder with the companies that you're working for beforehand, they were kind of in the beauty industry, but standing alone. Birchbox was like one of the few tech companies. Like they had such amazing, what felt like creepy and invasive software at the beginning to personalize like what you were going to get so much. That was among the first like shopping experiences, I guess, that really gave the consumer a little bit more control over the even just the marketing, the branding they're going to receive with email marketing. I remember that being like really like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, like you're going to send me a message twice a week about this new product you're bringing on. Like, let me go stalk them. I don't have anything else to do at my desk. Like, this
Oh
is
my God, I
great.
love you. You know, like all of the nitty gritty that we used to do. That's so awesome.
I stalked the shit out of Birchbox because it was such a. I've been doing PR for 14 years. I started in
Right.
this muck of like figure it out. Like I was working for like helping strip clubs and steak shops like push their
I
Thursday
want to talk
evening
about strip
specials.
clubs. We gotta do another episode and talk about the strip club learning. I'm gonna interview you because I am dying to know that.
Oh my God. I had to tell my parents I was working at, I can't even remember what the lie was. I would tell my sister, but I'm like, if this phone number calls, it's an emergency and don't let mom and dad answer it. Like, I'm at work. I was the day manager of this strip club, nightclub. Anywho, I digress. But Birchbox at the time really was almost like an anomaly in the fact that it was doing something completely different. And the fact that something completely different was relegated to beauty was also brand new because sports, everything else got the cool shit. Beauty got left in the background. And it felt like this was the first time that some money and some focus were given to an industry that everyone was sleeping on besides like a new lip shade every like new season. It was really, it must have been so cool to just have that marketing like enrich your decision making.
Yeah, it was an experience of a lifetime because it wasn't just, to your point, a new idea, right? It wasn't just a new facial concept, right? It was really taking an industry and taking the consumer experience and understanding the pain points from both right? And the brand, like the brands and the consumer, and saying, we're going to solve this and we're going to add technology and we're going to change the way we market to human beings and get them to discover things like
Mhm.
beauty. And it was like changing multiple, things at the same time. And it was a total pioneer in the subscription model business, but also the way like we think about marketing and reaching consumers, new consumers. It was so cool to witness. I learned more than I could have imagined there. And funny enough, like majority of the people around me are connected to Birchbox still to this day, and that was in
Wow.
2011, right when I started there.
Yeah.
So, over 10 years ago, and they're still some of my dear friends. So
Oh,
it's very cool story.
I love that. So it also doesn't escape me that Glowbar is providing a completely different experience for an industry that has been around for many decades. I wonder, was that part of your like impetus to get something going? Like, I want to do beauty, but I want it to be different. Like, can you give us a little bit about what you were ruminating on before Glowbar was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do? This, how did you get to the idea of Glowbar?
So I want to tell you that it was like this, like really well thought out, like business plan initially. That was like, I was like, I want to change, this, and like it's gonna be Glowbar. It was at dinner with my mom, like, and not because of a lot of like life before that, and not taking care of my skin and wanting to like support people, but I would just say to her at dinner all the time, I wish there was a 30-minute facial option. And she would sit there, and her and I are like so similar, talking about DNA. Like impatient. We don't want to sit for too long. We like to move around. We're not laying down, for like an hour and a half to get a facial. Like give me results and let me get out of here so I can go do the things I love. And we just would talk about it all the time. And literally, like, I was like, someone's got to start this. Someone's got to start this. She's like, I know. And I'm like, you should, mom. Like, start another company. And then it was like, wait, why don't I? Like, I kind of like this idea. And so, but then I started to realize, okay, I really want this. Consumer Rachel really wants this and needs this in her life. And I'm 32 years old at the time. Maybe there are other people that really need this, want this, and would spend their hard earned disposable income on it. And
Mhm.
that's where I started to think, like, oh, I'm your average consumer, hardworking, woman, 32. I have some disposable income, but I don't want to spend it all on my facial that weekend. I don't want to spend all of my time on my facial this weekend, and I don't know who to trust. There have to be other women like me or men like me. And, then I started to really dig into like, oh, this is a really great business idea. This is going to change the way consumers experience professional skincare. This is going to change the way estheticians start their career, end their career, like how they, build their career. And that's when, the little idea, like the little nugget just kind of continued to blossom. But it wasn't like, and I'm so glad it wasn't like the people who start these businesses in grad school, with all due respect, and say, oh, there's white space. We should start a business, but have no passion, have no legacy, have no like prior experience in that industry. And I think that's what sets us apart, right? Like why Glowbar exists is to help people feel confident in their skin, and it pulls on the legacy. It pulls on me having a challenge that I couldn't fix until I created Glowbar. And so I think there's people can feel that when they come into Glowbar or read about our brand and experience our brand. There's a lot more like soul, I would say, to the company.
You nailed it. I was literally just going to say, it feels like you put the soul back into just the beauty industry on a hands-on level. I think it became what felt a little transactionary, and like you had a schedule and you got to fit in it. And there's a lot, I think, also around the time that you were having this realization. I had a little bit of disposable income, and I would, think like, well, do I drop 260 plus tip on this facial that's made for like 40 plus year old women that are worried about wrinkles and this and that? Like, I've got a little acne because I had a citywide last week and it broke me out. And now, like, who do you know what to do about this? Can you help? Oh no, you're just going to smooth my. Okay, well, I feel refreshed, but I'm still left with this
Yeah.
acne here that I can't get rid of. I wonder if Man, I mean, no one was thinking about that back then. You could ask them and they'd be like, "Oh, just wash more, wash your face more, change your pillowcase at night." I'm like, "Duh, I read 17 magazine and Cosmo Girl. Like I know the basics. Like
Right.
what can you do for me beyond that?" There was never any customization. It was always just lay down, pick one off the menu, here you go. Spend a lot of money, leave feeling good because like it's enjoyable, but
Yeah.
there was a lot to be desired.
Yes. Yeah. We hope we're solving for that and we'll continue to. And I think like the consumer also is so knowledgeable. And, you just mentioned we used to read, People magazine, Allure, Cosmo, and that was like the extent of our knowledge. And then the World Wide Web exploded, and influencers are now dermatologists practically and estheticians, and people just know so much and they're gathering information all the time. And so they're looking for effective results because you can't just wash their face and moisturize them and say, great, there's your facial anymore, because they know what chemical peels are and what glycolic acid is, and that hyaluronic acid is what hydrates your skin and holds 1,000 times its weight in, molecular value. And so, it's time that like we give the consumer a real effective treatment, and you can't pull like wool over their face anymore. Is that the saying? I'm so bad with those things.
I think it's wool over their eyes, but for an esthetician, it would be their face, you know? They'd have a little towel.
Very on brand.
It also feels like, in a way, that your whole entire business setup has kind of championed and like relegated what used to be a very luxury, high end, you have to be wealthier experience to have. And you've kind of given it to us, the Gen Pop, like the people that no one really cared about or catered to before. Was that a conscious decision of your business model, your membership model? Could you kind of go into the back end of like what building out that part of the business was like for you, and where you were kind of focusing to have these specifics that differentiate you from everybody else?
Yeah, I'm a very value oriented consumer, regardless of my disposable income. And so I built it for what I was comfortable with. And I consider myself to be in that like general population, right? Who like, I don't care if I feel like I'm really wealthy in my bank account. I still have a ceiling that I'm willing to pay for certain things. And I coupled that with the understanding that people should be getting facials with a professional esthetician every single month. And every month, I'm not going to spend $200+ on a facial, even if I can afford it. And my financial planner tells me I can afford it, I'm still not going to. And so I wanted to pick a price and a service and a value that aligned with the majority, because everyone should be able to see an esthetician once a month and take care of their skin and feel confident in themselves. That's not like unique to the wealthy. Like everyone should feel good in their skin. And so I just worked towards that. Like, what can we do in 30 minutes for $65, $75? How can we make it even more affordable if someone's a member, so they can come every single month, get a little bit more value, and not feel like we're breaking their bank. So yeah, it was all really intentional. And democratization of all of these industries is such a common term, but we really are. And my hope is that Glowbar can exist not only in New York City, but also in any market, and have it be able to be afforded by that community. So that's actually why like we're so excited to go outside of New York and Connecticut in the coming year. We're coming to Philly. We have a bunch of other locations that we're going to announce soon, and also New Jersey. So we're finally kind of getting out there and going to expand.
Yeah, and thank you for keeping all of this beauty and wonder on the East Coast for all of us that don't live in California and can't get all the cool beauty stuff. This feels really exclusive and um, very celeb-like in a way. It's like, oh shit, like I can go get a facial maybe twice a month if I, count
Yeah.
my pennies right. Like it's so, until you've gotten a facial and then you walk out and you're like, oh, I'll get one of them every month. And then you're like, oh man, maybe once every other month. Oh,
Yeah.
maybe once every like quarter. You've solved that problem by taking the price of one that they would have every quarter and giving them the ability to have it every month and give a nice tip to their esthetician
Hmm.
and really making a change in their day. They're not feeling like, oh, I wasn't able to give her enough, or oh, I don't have enough to give her a tip. I can't go get the facial. And they
Right.
give an $80 tip on top of this. Like, it's beautiful that you thought about all the little decision making points that come down to that mid 20 something through 30 something through 40 something woman that, maybe doesn't give herself the finer things all the time. It's like you're almost giving them that little push down the hill to like go for the little sled ride that they're afraid of because you've taken away all of the barriers. It truly is something that you can give yourself, which is cool. It's so cool to make it
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I think like there's a way to have it work for everyone, and I think you just have to be really thoughtful when you're starting a business if that's your intent, right? There are some brands that launch and they say we're going to be the most premier luxury X, Y, and Z, and that's okay. But if your intent is to be for everyone and to support as many people as possible in every community, then you have to be really thoughtful about how you're going to do it. And we take those decisions, like we don't take them lightly, I would say. So far it's been working. We're really excited to come to Philly and greet that community and make them feel like more confident in their skin.
Oh, it's going to be great. They're going to be obsessed with you. I wonder, with you having now 12 stores, what is the training like to keep all locations kind of on the same page? Because you've gotten so large so quick. Actually, let's take it back to 2019 when you started, because you grew to three within that time frame, which we all know is batshit crazy for lack of a better categorization of that time. But to be starting a business in 2019 and then expanding to three by the end of that year, man, I got to know about that. And then we'll talk about how you keep everyone on the same page now that you have this huge empire.
Yeah, you're so sweet. You sound like my mom, who's like an empire, and I'm like,
Yeah.
we're a small little like village. It's not an empire, but thank you. I appreciate it. 2019. You know what? It was actually the best thing that could have happened for us, COVID. And that's like a very weird thing to say. And by the way, I'm not saying it was the best thing for the world because there were so many things that we lost and so many amazing people. And like, what a tragedy we all went through. And continue to just talk about it and go through and be pained by. But for Glowbar and for any early business, the opportunity to shut down for 6 months your operation and regroup on what was working, what isn't working. How could we have done that better? What do we want to do differently when we do reopen? Is a blessing, really, and we took it as such. And so, yes, 2019 we opened in June. It was like a very quick realization that we were on to something, which was so exciting. Like it actually was very surreal. Like I didn't even realize while we were doing it. Like all of a sudden we had like 1,000 members, and I was like, wait. 1,000 people joined our membership. Like I didn't even realize what that could become because you're in it, right? And we were off to a great start, signed our second lease, shut down for COVID, and then yes, opened two more, when we were able to reopen, which was really exciting. And I think like, we just did what every entrepreneur does, which is you just put one foot in front of the other and you just keep going, right? And like that's what we did, and it worked out. And it was actually a wonderful experience going through a closure of your business for a period of time because it made us stronger. It made me stronger. Every day can be hard. There's challenges that come up every single day that, I don't talk about on social or, no one sees, the like, oh shoot, that didn't work. And actually we're behind or whatever that is. But I'm pretty resilient because like nothing's really as bad as having this city, state, country tell you to shut down your business. You cannot reopen. And I don't know if there's a reopening. Like I'm like, okay, well, a little like plumbing issue at one of our studios isn't the worst thing. So overall, I try to look at it as a great learning experience. And I don't know where we would have been if we didn't shut down for those 6 months, but it could have been a very different trajectory. So I'm grateful for it. And to your question about how do we keep everyone now, with all of our studios and further expansion on the horizon, trained and giving the same treatment every single day at every location? It's like a team of people. It's really high standards, consistent ongoing training, and checks and balances along the way. And we also have technology that has supported us in the treatment room to allow for every treatment to be standardized. So if you get a treatment in Philly or if you get a treatment in New York, they're using the same piece of technology in the treatment room that guides the treatment. So it should be very similar, but we spend a lot of our time and resources on our training department, and that team is like so strong and incredible. So I'm indebted to them like every day.
Oh, that's so cool. And to have that harness so quickly within like your 5 years of business is also really cool. It's like you've got that blueprint now to just hit the ground running, sign that lease, sign this lease, train these ladies, train these ladies. Like that's how does that feel to have your book now? Like you've got your
Yeah.
tried and true method ready to go.
Yeah, that playbook that you speak of, and you're so smart to like recognize that there is that playbook now, because fun fact, we didn't really have that playbook until last year. So does it feel cool? It feels so cool. And it's also just a lot of hard work. Like my team is working so hard every day to put that together, and have those playbooks in place so that we can just rinse and repeat now. And Also, like, it's always evolving, right? So anytime we make any small change, that playbook has to also evolve with us. So I think it's ongoing, and I think that's what maybe people forget, or we're in year, like, we're coming up on year 5, but like we're still so small, right? And we've just scratched the surface, if we even have. And there's a lot more evolution to happen to get even tighter on those playbooks. But having this like good foundation, like I really believe in a business, you have to build a really strong foundation before you build that like castle on top of it, right? Like a house. You can't build a house on a rocky foundation or one with cracks. And I feel like 2023 was about like really like finishing off that foundation and getting it like really strong and sturdy to now build off of. So that's where I would say we are. So this year, like, we're doing the first level of the house, and we'll keep going.
Man, it's just so cool to speak to someone that's in your specific phase. There's I feel like business owners start and they're like, well, I can do this all on my own. And now I've got one person with me or two people. And then when it comes to the moment where it's like, do we scale and bring on 25 or do I stay where I'm at and like chill and like, let's stay
Yeah.
small? Was there ever a moment where you were hesitant about growing any further, or were you just like, I'm going to figure it out on the other side? Like, let's just trailblaze through this.
The latter. And that's just like innate in me. Like that's just how I am. I'm like that in everything I do, right? I'm like, when I was younger too, and like living off of like, paycheck to paycheck here in New York City, making like $48,000, like nothing. I was like, I'll buy that. I'll figure out how to like figure it out, like pay for it later. That's just how I roll. And so I always wanted this to be as big as possible. And so like growth has never been a question. It's always been to me a guarantee. I just have to like figure out how to grow. Every 6 months, basically, we hit like a different you know, like moment of like, oh, wait, things feel different now. How do we grow into this? Almost. It's like we buy like a big sweater that we like can't fit into yet. And we're like, how do we get there? So, no, it's always been like, I'm like, no, we'll figure it out as we go. And I think there's like, a very common term like in entrepreneurship, or like saying that like an entrepreneur like jumps and builds the parachute as they're falling or something. And it's really true. It's like so cliche. It's like I didn't even say the metaphor right, but it really is true. But what I tell my team is like I want them to be jumping, but like I'm their trampoline. Like I'm here to like catch them. And I think that like that's a really important thing for a startup founder or like small business founder, is like to trust those people that you've brought on and empower them to like take those risks, make mistakes, and catch them before they like hit too hard, like keep them kind of on the up and up.
That sounds like a dream in terms of the culture that you've been able to cultivate. I think a lot of independently owned businesses that get to your size sometimes don't think about the culture and how you really do have to both have this playbook, but underneath of that playbook is the soul of your team and how they coalesce and how they feel comfortable coming to you or maybe not feeling comfortable. Was there ever, I guess, from some of your corporate time, although it sounds like you had excellent relationships and times with the places you were at, you said there were things that you knew you didn't want to bring forward into your company. Was there anything culture wise from these larger brands that you worked with before you started that you were like, ooh, love that. Gonna make sure I do that for my team in the future?
Um, I was always really fortunate to work at like really kind, warm places. Like I don't know, maybe it's just what I gravitate towards, right? Like female founded. Like I've never worked for a man since TJX.
Oh,
I know. So like I don't know what it would be like to work for a guy. Like what a concept. Um and maybe one I never want to find out. I don't know. But so I was really fortunate like probably why I care so much about Glowbar being enthusiastic and driven and warm and approachable, not clicky, open and transparent, bringing your like full human self to the organization. Um, is probably why that that probably comes from seeing that in the past and experiencing it and being like, oh yeah, I want to replicate that here. So I had some really great role models, and I also like got a sense of what I didn't want it to feel like. And so if I feel that here, I start to say like, ooh, my instinct, like my gut is like telling me that like we need to tweak something or we need to improve upon this. And so that kind of is my guiding light. But and it's not perfect, by the way. I'm making it sound absolutely perfect, aren't I? So we're not perfect. I'm not, but that's I think why this culture is special because I don't expect anyone to be perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. One of our key core values is being self-aware. And that is like, I'm just as responsible for upholding that as my team is. And so, for example, the other day I like made like a royal mistake on my calendar. I like missed a call. I canceled a call. Like it was like kind of a disaster. And I like, was just like, this was totally my fault. I'm so sorry. And like, that's kind of the culture here. We're just like, we're human, we're working really hard, we're really excited about what we're building, and there's also going to be blips along the way, and we can like roll with those.
that's beautiful. So you're giving them a place to both have autonomy in their role, showing up as who they are to do that role, and then also seeing accountability from the top, which ultimately makes you feel comfortable to kind of broadcast your mistakes rather than hide them and then let them fester until it's a moment where you're like, oops, like giving them maybe more of like the adage of like, well, you try to fix it before you come to me, but like come with a solution, not a problem, and we got this. Like we're gonna pull it all together. That's
Exactly.
so cool. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
I think we've created something really special here for our customers and clients, and also for our teams. I don't take it lightly that that's like my responsibility to like foster that environment and like people spend their lives at work, like majority
Yes.
of them and days, and like I spend more time with my team than I do my family. And so it's my responsibility and the onus is on me to make sure this is at least a little bit fun
Hmm.
and that people can like say they're like anxious and like not have there be like judgment or fear or like have to hide things. One of the like best quotes I've heard in the past like few months is like there's no healing in silence.
Yes.
And like I'm not saying like everyone's healing around here all day long, but like
Yeah.
like just if you're having a crappy day, like tell us. Like we're here for you. And like by the way, we've all been there like multiple
Yeah.
times, so like we're good. Like if you need
Yeah.
to go home, like we just have a very human culture here, I would say.
So beautiful. And to give them the room to just let the edge off a little bit by not needing to fit into some box because you recognize they have a whole life outside of this and they are human. And
Yeah.
no sweat off your back. That's so cool. To be able to provide that work environment must also feel cool.
Yeah.
I would love to know, speaking for your grandmother and mother, like what? has it been like for them to watch you go through this journey? Like, I can't imagine that if I were them, I'd get through a day without bawling my face out, just being like, wow, this is really beautiful that this
Yeah.
is happening in front of our like peepers. Like, what do they think about this?
Yeah, so it's kind of sad. My grandmother had dementia when I started the business.
Oh,
And I know it's always like a little bit of a tearjerker thinking about that. And she passed away last 2 Aprils ago.
I'm so sorry.
And did she know about Glowbar? I think she did. Like there was something in her eyes and like she was really not aware of like who we were at the end. But like there was something like she like knew that like Rachel had gone on to like do something and like make her proud and carry on her legacy. So like I believe she knows. I believe I'm like a little woo woo. Like I believe she's up there looking down and like sometimes when good things happen I'm like, thank you, Grandma. Appreciate
Of
you.
course.
Um, my mom, on the other hand, is very much alive, well, and proud. And just like you were saying, like she's always said that I was like, even when I was like at a company like Beauty Blender, which is where I was before Glowbar, she would basically, I think she told everyone I like ran the company, right? Like, but I was simply like just an employee. So I think she tells people I like am, the president of beauty in New York City. Like she's just like endlessly proud, and it's really nice. And I think for her too, just like seeing me carry it on for her mom, it's definitely like warms her heart, and so that's really cool. And sometimes I sit back and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like three generations, so makes the fam happy, I think.
It's beautiful, and for you not to be a farmer and have a generational deep business, it's really rare. It's quite rare to just have that kind of weave throughout all of you. It's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's not every day that someone has such familial ties ingrained so deeply with like familial success, and then the fact that you've made it your own. Is really inspirational. It's really beautiful. You got to take what you loved from that and make your own thing, which I think
Yeah.
is something people should think about.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And it certainly makes it's like more fulfilling. It's just even more fulfilling from just what we do.
Ugh, so beautiful. I can't leave without having you walk us through what a typical entry into Glowbar would be like. So walk us through what someone can expect when they enter Glowbar.
Yeah, so Glowbar is meant to be efficient, a little respite from your day. So you walk in, you're greeted by one of our amazing studio guides. You check in on the iPads. We make it really easy. You put in your phone number, you walk right in. You then go to our wash bar where you wash your own face for us. We've got beautiful hand soap and a cleanser that takes off your makeup and also tones and cleanse your face. We've got beautiful muslin cloths that we specially sourced for you to dry your face off. You then sit in our lounge and wait for your esthetician, and then your esthetician greets you. You go for your 30-minute facial. You indicate if you want to talk a lot or not talk a lot, which is a nice
Aw.
little experience control that you have. And when you're done, you are set up with a skincare routine at the front, if you are interested in that, and then you go about your day feeling more confident in your skin. But overall, it should be a very efficient, effective, educational, and really a nice way to do something for yourself.
Oh, that sounds like a dream. And the makeup removal station. Holy moly, is that smart? That probably shaves a few moments off of everything to begin with. I love that.
Exactly.
Oh, you've paid attention to every detail. Guys, I probably don't have to tell you or persuade you to go visit Glowbar, but please go visit Glowbar. They're going to have two locations opening in Pennsylvania. We'll call it late spring, but stay tuned. I'll keep you guys all up to date on that. Rachel, before you go, my final question for everyone is this. Rachel, how do you make your life rich?
Friends, family, and putting myself first.
I love that. That
Yeah.
is perfect. That's beautiful. Oh, Rachel, thank you so much. This was such a beautiful conversation, and thank you for just sharing all the behind the scenes of Glowbar. I can't imagine where you'll be 5 more years from now, but I'll be rooting you on. And just thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.